Today, we take the first step into a new dimension on Let's Play Ultima 4. First, however, a couple of minor loose ends. First, I do want to go back into Buccaneer's Den. There was one tiny piece of information I neglected to gather as long as I was here. You will remember that someone in town was telling us something about the dungeon Hithloth being the way to the lighter-than-air device. There was also this person up here, Jeremy James Searlock, who had some information for us. How does his script work? He wants to know if we are looking for a special dungeon, and the dungeon he knows about happens to be Hithloth, which we learned about elsewhere in town and possibly somewhere else in the script too. I don't remember exactly where. And he tells us that the dungeon Hithloth can only be reached by a secret entrance in the Great Castle. That's not actually the only way, but it is the easiest way. And you will also recall that much earlier in the game, when we were exploring Lord Bridge's castle, there was a person warning us away from a locked door and a ladder, from which we might never return! And that happens to be the entrance to Hithloth that he's talking about. So the next thing I want to do I want to go over to Pause, which is more or less due west of here. By the way, as long as I'm sailing past it, one of these islands, I believe that 2-square one at the bottom there, I'm not going to go all the way there because the wind's in the wrong direction. So, whatever. But, there is actually a second place on that island where you could harvest mandrake. I think on the right side of that island, if I remember correctly. I'm not going to do it because I have plenty and the moon phase is nowhere near correct. But it's something you could do if you really wanted to harvest extra mandrake. Ugh. Come on, ship. By the way, after reloading, you will see that my ship's hull has dropped back to 50 there, so this would be when you would want to use the wheel again. Although it probably won't matter on this trip. I should probably be fighting these to grind my valor. I'm just gonna walk through the mountains here. My goal is simply to go to the magic shop and restock on reagents. It's back in the secret door here. And I'm also going to grind up my honesty and justice as long as I'm in the area. So, paying the correct price for a reagent does raise both honesty and justice a little bit. So I'll do that one at a time. You'd basically have to do this 25 times if you're starting from neutral. More if you've been doing bad things, less if you've been doing good things. So I'll take care of most of this off-screen. Okay, I think that's all I need. Just one more purchase of spider silk here. So you can't see anything, but my off-screen display tells me that I am up to being ready for elevation in both honesty and justice. And I now have 10 of most of my reagents. And that's all I want to do here. course the wind's still bad. I'm just going to sail up to Lord British's castle, and I'll do it off-screen, I think. You know the way by now. Okay, the wind was actually nice to me there. I will save outside here, just in case. So, one minor loose end here. Chuckles, we were told by a jester over in the Lyceum, has a clue that he would not divulge. But if we just ask him, he tells us no problem. Something about speaking unto waters and asking about altars, whatever that means. I'm also going to wander over and talk to Hawkwind here, just to demonstrate that I am ready for elevation in these two virtues. Also, yay! I have now gotten myself to the point where if I speak to him once more, I have gotten myself ready for elevation in spirituality if I ask him about it again. Both talking to Hawkwind and meditating at shrines raises your spirituality a little bit. There is no timer on talking to Hawkwind, so if you want to grind your spirituality quickly, just talk to him over and over. If my mental math is correct, I think you need to talk to him about 15 times, 16, if you start from neutral. And I also want to come here and talk to Lord British and get my level. Hooray! And he has nothing else to say to us. Leave? Yep. So that means that I am either elevated or ready for elevation in everything except Valor, which I just need to fight a bunch if I want to get that ready. Valor has a random chance of going up 1 point every time you fight a battle. That means, in principle, that if you fight 100 battles starting from neutral, statistically you should be ready, but it's not guaranteed. But this over here is the water that Chuckles was talking about. And we can talk to the water for some reason. Its name is Water, and it holds a secret. But it won't tell us what the secret is unless we know what it is already. But because of Chuckles, we know that it holds the secret to altars. And it tells us explicitly here that there are 3 altar rooms, and they are connected at the bottoms of all 8 dungeons. Not all of them, but there are a bunch of interconnections between them in complicated ways. And I'll talk more about that when we actually find a few of them. That is all we learn from the water. So, over here, we were given dire warnings about this door from which we may not be able to return. The reason is we go through here, we go down the ladder, and suddenly we descend into the depths! And we have to change discs. Our first time getting out the Underworld disc. And we get spooky music. And it's dark. And I need to ignite a torch. I should have plenty. And suddenly, it's 3D! This has been the gimmick of the Ultima series forever, basically. At least at this time in history. The overworld is 2D top-down, the dungeons are 3D wireframe. So you will note that there is no ladder going up, there is no way to go back up. We can't return to Lord Bridges' castle directly from here. We could go down a bunch, but that wouldn't take us anywhere we really care about for the time being. What you could do if you go all the way down is all three of the altar rooms exist in Hithloth, this dungeon. The idea, basically, is that each virtue touches on one or more of the three principles, so the dungeon opposing each virtue has connections to the altar rooms of those principles. Since spirituality touches on all three principles, and Hithloth is the dungeon that opposes spirituality, Hithloth therefore has connections to all three of the altar rooms. It doesn't really matter, I won't be taking advantage of it for now. For the time being, I'm just going to mix the exit spell and get out of here. If I can get my mouse on the right window. The reagents for that are ADE, Ash, Silk, and Moss. We cast exit, and it takes us back outside the dungeon. But it takes us to some completely different place. For what it's worth, this is on the Isle of the Avatar, same place as the Shrine of Humility where we were earlier. You can see it on the map down there. For right now, though, I'm going to go back into the dungeon just to demonstrate one minor thing. So I'll go back down, and it takes us to a different place. Now, note here, the spelling of the name of the dungeon is not Hithloth. It's Hyloth, or Hiloth. I don't know. But every other dungeon we've heard about pretty clearly opposes one of the virtues in some way. Deceit is obviously the opposite of honesty. Despise is the opposite of compassion, or dastard, as in dastard, is the opposite of valor, or a little more awkward, but still obvious. Hithloth, however, it's not actually a real word as far as I or anyone really knows. But this spelling, it doesn't exist outside of this context in this version of the game, as far as I know. Which is actually one major reason I chose to play the Apple II version. Because it does support what I think is probably the most plausible theory of where the name came from. I have seen it theorized that the name comes from the actual term hylotheism. It means basically the belief that the divine and the material world are the same thing. I'm not sure how that differs from pantheism or non-dualism in general, but whatever. But I can imagine Richard Garriott flipping through a thesaurus and finding that as a plausible antonym for spirituality. I'd think that materialism would be a better antonym for spirituality, and that's probably kind of what they were going for, but whatever. Materialism would be a pretty dumb name for a dungeon anyway. But let's just go on back into the dungeon of Hyloth-ism. 'Cause we are living in a material world, and Shelby's a material girl. Or something like that. I don't know. But dungeons, as you can see, are 3D mazes. You have to navigate them in 3 dimensions, and you have to use turns to change your facing direction. I will not be doing anything too significant right now. I'm just going to demonstrate one small thing. First, however, come down here, turning left at the junction. This thing is one of those magic orbs that the one-handed beggar at Serpent's Castle was talking about. If you touch that ball, you will lose a lot of health and gain certain attributes in exchange for it. Just like the dungeon altar rooms, the balls are based on the principles associated with the virtue opposed by the dungeon. In this case, the dungeon of Hithloth is opposed by all three principles, therefore this ball would raise all three attributes, strength, dexterity, and intelligence. If instead you went into the dungeon Deceit, which opposes honesty, that would raise only intelligence. And if you went into the dungeon Wrong, which opposes justice, you would raise, I guess, intelligence and dexterity associated with truth and love. I think that's how it works. Whatever. But if you raise one attribute, you would lose 200 hit points here. If you raised 2, you would lose 400. And if you raised all 3, as in this case, you would lose 800 hit points. 800 hit points also happens to be the maximum you can ever get by any means, so that would kill you instantly. And if Shelby, as the only person in my party, dies, that would be game over. So I won't do that. And my stats are plenty high anyway, so I will not be taking advantage of these orbs. It is something you could do if you really wanted to max out your party, but it's not so important that I'll be using it. Now, there is a ladder up ahead, but I don't think it leads anywhere at all that is interesting. I don't even know what you'd find if you went all the way through Hithloth this way. Maybe just a bunch of treasure. However, and this would be extremely valuable if you were exploring these dungeons on your own without a map, if you peer at a gem, you'll see your mini-map here. And there is actually a secret door to the west there, along with some spooky things behind it. You won't be able to see them properly with the way the dungeon is rendered, but I'll tell you right now, those are poison fields, so be prepared. That other unreadable icon at the top left happens to be an altar, where you would find a virtue stone, perhaps. So I'm going to wander over there, and as soon as we come out of that secret entrance, we are in poison fields. I am stunned I got all the way through there without getting poisoned. I'll have to do it again on the way out. But... Hello, rat! When you're wandering around in dungeon corridors, you can find random enemy groups like that. And as it happens, I have not yet fought a rat, I don't think. So just gonna find it on my enemy sheet here. Giant rats are non-evil, for what that's worth. There's nothing too much special about them. They have 48 hit points, they award 4 experience points, they can deal up to 9 damage. Again, they are non-evil, so don't kill them if you can avoid it. Or I could just kill it outright. For what it's worth, 1, it doesn't matter if they're not fleeing. Also, I also think, but I'm not sure, that when you're in a dungeon, I think the normal operation of virtues is suspended, so you can do pretty much whatever you want in combat. But when you get to the end here, that thing that looks nothing like an altar is, in fact, an altar. That is the graphic used for altars. And this is where you would normally find a virtue stone. However, as we know, the white stone is not in Hithloth. It is gone. It is somewhere in the Serpent Spine. But I just wanted to demonstrate that if you came in here without bothering to listen to dialogue, you would actually find an altar there, but find nothing there, and get nothing out of it. And I'm just going to leave the dungeon now. There's nothing else to do in here. But that is just a brief overview of how dungeons work in this game. We will be seeing much more of those. But the actual reason we came here, as was noted, that's the light of the Nair device right there. It's a hot air balloon. Now, what you're supposed to do is get in the balloon, fly it all the way back to the area of Lord British's castle, and then land on a very precise spot to get the white stone. However, you board the balloon, you can't move it around yet, as shown here. You actually have to climb, which allows it to start drifting around based on the wind. To land, you would have to hit the descend button. And you can only do that, I think, on grass. Oh, that's spooky. I'm sure I'll have to come there eventually. You also cannot control the balloon directly, it just goes in whichever direction the wind is blowing. And as we know from boating around, the wind is never in the direction you would like it to be. And even if you try to change it with the wind change spell, it'll change again at an inappropriate time within a few frames. So, it's not going to achieve much. Now I think there's a spot coming up. Yes, you land the balloon using the descend command. And you climb using the K option, which is completely unintuitive. So for that reason, trying to actually use the balloon to get to that one square where you can get the white stone using the balloon is absurdly impossible. I'm not going to be doing that. There is another way which is also annoying, but not quite so bad, so I'll be doing that soon. For the time being, I'm just going to let the balloon drift around pointlessly until it gets somewhere where I can land it and move on. However long that may take, I will edit it out. Would you like to fly in my beautiful balloon? So I am passing by the Shrine of Honesty here, and it looks like the balloon is going to be going in the general direction of Verity Isle here to the south, in the vicinity of Moonglow. It's pretty inconvenient for me, but whatever. By the way, if you press exit, you can land the balloon anywhere you like, even if it's not somewhere you're supposed to be able to land it. I think you could even do that on mountains. That is a bug that may be corrected in other versions of the game, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just gonna land the balloon here on Verity Isle. Take the moon gate back to somewhere, and there it will stay for the rest of eternity. Until Ultima 6. Okay, back into the area of Lord British's castle here. I'll just point out where the white stone actually is. Basically, if I come up here to this... Oh, how about that? Because I exited the balloon improperly, the line of sight stuff is no longer working correctly, so you can see it without even using a gem. Normally, though, you'd have to peer at a gem to see that little bit of land there in the middle. That one tile is where the white stone is supposed to be. So, trying to land the balloon using wind spells to direct it in that one spot, as far as I've experienced, is all but impossible. Instead, I'm going to be using blink spells to get there, which is also all but impossible, but slightly less so. So, I'm not entirely sure how the mechanics of blink work offhand, but I'll do the best I can. The reagents for blink are silk and moss, so I'll just mix a few of those, try a few times, and if I don't get it, I'll reset. Alright, so I'm going to try to go straight north from basically where that mountain pass is. As far as I understand the mechanics of Blink, I think that's my highest chance of getting it right. Chances are we will get it right on the first try. Okay, never mind. Normally what happens is you overshoot, end up way up to the north, and you have to keep going back and forth hoping the randomizer will put you in the right place. Anyway, we land here, we search, we find the white stone. Done. And you can now see on my item screen here, there's now a line for the virtue stones I have found, the white and black ones. The rest of them are all in dungeons. We'll find them later. For now, since I'm ready for elevation and justice, and I happen to be in the area, I'm going to go up to you and take care of that. You know the way to you by now, so I'll do that off screen. Okay, you sure does look different with the line of sight not working. Let's see if I can fix that by going in and out of town or something. No, doesn't look like it. Well, cheating like that is a thing you could do if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna save and reset, because I don't think it looks very good to have that going on. Okay, that's the dark and foreboding deep forest I'd prefer to have. Okay, the Shrine of Justice is... you can kind of see it on the peninsula to the northeast of you there. So we just go up here. Of course there's a swamp there. Whatever. We do have to walk through 2 squares. Okay, for now we're fine. Probably get poisoned on the way out. And as always, I will show all the messages you can get with editing. Okay, the mantra, of course, is "Bleh." And taking other people's money is not just. Got it. Thanks, game. Okay, the 2-cycle message is, don't kill people. Thanks, game. Because we learned not to steal and kill, we have achieved partial avatarhood in the virtue of justice. Hooray! And there, as always, is our vision. It's another eye. Okay. I'm pretty sure there's more to justice than that, though, so I'm going to pass a few times off-screen and try to get the normal 3-cycle message. Okay, my meditation timer just came up, so I'm going to do that now. I did fight a couple of things off-screen that wandered all the way up here just to spite me. So I got a bit of gold from that, so I'll probably be retaining this save. Okay, here we go. And we learn not to kill non-evil beasts. And that is true. If you allow a non-evil beast to flee, you'll get a little bit of justice. I am surprised they don't allude to the more efficient way of getting justice, which I did earlier in this episode, which is to properly pay the herb merchant. Anyway, with that taken care of, I have a little bit more virtue on my side. So, After I kill this skeleton, I will be heading on to do a proper dungeon, not just Hithloth, the joke dungeon. And I will be doing that next time. Thank you for watching, and good night.